From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. Jake Gallen used to work behind the velvet ropes in Las Vegas. Among other things, he worked the cabanas at Planet Hollywood. And for a while, he thought that life sparkled.
You know, it's funny because when I was going to UNLV, I was in a fraternity there, and you'd say, yeah, you know, I would love to have a nightclub job because I can continue this type of lifestyle.
But it got a little old.
Once you get into that lifestyle after about a year or two, you're like, man, this kind of sucks.
It wasn't just that he was awake when the rest of his friends were asleep, or that he missed all kinds of milestones in other people's lives. It was just kind of lonely. And he worried that he'd never find something as exciting, where he'd be making that kind of money. Until one day, he was on a Reddit forum and found Ethereum, the cryptocurrency.
So I found Ethereum in 2016 on a Reddit forum called Wall Street Bets.
To Jake, trading Ethereum, the second largest cryptocurrency after Bitcoin, felt like opening a secret door into a whole new world. One that was intoxicating, unpredictable, and full of promise.
I was very fascinated by this idea of how it kind of strips power away from a lot of the central authorities. And for me, I was very certain that this was going to be the industry that changes the world. I still have that belief.
And like so many true believers, he didn't want to just watch from the sidelines. So he started trading crypto. And then he stumbled into the world of NFTs. That's short for non-fungible tokens. They're blockchain-based collectibles. Think Beanie Babies, but with code. And before long, he'd carved out a reputation in one of the strangest corners of the NFT universe, a niche known as historical NFTs. Think of them as relics, pixelated artifacts from crypto's adolescence.
So I was one of the largest mooncat collectors at the time.
Mooncats, primitive, quirky little pixelated pictures of cats, and among the very first NFTs ever minted.
And I said that I had some that I was interested in auctioning off.
They were valuable, a kind of Mickey Mantle rookie card of the blockchain. This wasn't an obvious career choice for a health science major, but Jake understood collectibles in a kind of visceral way, because he'd lived it.
I had actually owned an antique store in Vegas with my father. That was my first business. And so we were very knowledgeable in this world of like antiquities and collectibles.
Which is probably why Sotheby's came calling. Yes, that Sotheby's, the one that sells Van Goghs.
The painting by Vincent van Gogh, Scène de rue à Montmartre, painted in 1887.
And they asked him if he wanted to participate in their second ever NFT auction. It was a huge deal. One of the world's oldest auction houses was now moving into digital art.
11,250,000 euros, adjugé au Padel 51.
And just like that, Jake was suddenly orbiting crypto royalty, rubbing elbows with celebrities like Steve Aoki and Paris Hilton. He was hosting panels, being interviewed, live streaming. He started a podcast, and his profile exploded. And in the middle of all this, he made an unusual decision. In the crypto world, everyone hides. They use avatars or fake names, VPNs on top of VPNs. That's the culture, anonymous, encrypted, and untouchable. But not Jake Gallen. He, in essence, doxed himself.
Since I started in 2017, you know, being a doxed person was unheard of. That was like a very rare thing to do.
He used his real name, told people what he owned, where he worked, what he bought into. He thought the transparency would help him earn trust, so he leaned into it.
You know, obviously it makes you a target, but it also makes you a little bit more respectable, and it leads, in my opinion, to more opportunities.
That openness got him noticed. He started getting nonstop media requests. 3, 5, sometimes 8 interviews a week. So when a show called Tactical Investing reached out in April, it was just another thing he had to fit into his schedule.
The message was like, hey, you know, I'm doing a cohort of individuals with leaders in the industry for my channel. Would love to interview you. So I respond and say, hey, man, sure. Yeah, I'd love to.
A week later, he logged onto Zoom, ready for his interview. But this was not just any interview. This was a trap. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here, a podcast about all things cyber and intelligence. We tell true stories about the people making and breaking our digital world. Today, we're used to watching for a shady link, a sketchy email, a too-good-to-be-true promise. But what if danger comes wrapped in something ordinary? A Zoom call, a friendly face, a simple request. You don't need to be careless, just courteous. Stay with us. Click Here is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states. Support for Click Here comes from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. For 35 years, the EFF has been fighting to make sure that when you go online, your rights go with you. And they have a podcast. It's called How to Fix the Internet. And it's all about getting things right in our online world. Season 6 kicked off May 7th with an episode exploring the concept of digital autonomy. The fight for digital rights is bigger and more urgent than ever. EFF is at the forefront of that battle. And because it's member-supported, the more members they have, the more they can fight for our digital rights in state houses, in courthouses, and everywhere. Visit EFF.org/podcast to listen to How to Fix the Internet and join EFF. From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here. Jake Gallen had always known that deciding to use his real name publicly and talking so openly about his life would be a risk. So he made sure his security was airtight.
I generally consider myself to be very careful. I mean, I have maybe 5 to 10 different hardware wallets with different assets on top of it, multiple computers which hold different types of wallets.
So anytime he got an interview request, he would vet them thoroughly. And that's exactly what he did in April, when he got an interview request from a YouTube show he'd never heard of, something called Tactical Investing. Did they have mutual followers? Check. History of posts with original content? Check, check. A show that appears to be a real show.
Hey guys, what is up? It is Alexander here, back with Tactical Investing, and in today's video, I want to do a step-by-step staking process.
The YouTube channel had close to 100,000 subscribers, had like 6 years of posting history. I had interviews with people that I'm familiar with in the industry, and had a bunch of recent posts, was posting videos every few days or so.
So he said yes, and he was excited. By this point, he was CEO of a crypto company, and they had a new product he wanted to demo. So the day of the interview, he logged on, and it started like so many interviews before it. But the host had his camera off.
So when we get on the interview, he has his screen off, and he says, "Do you mind that I'm going to keep my screen off?"
Why wouldn't he want his camera on? He was a YouTuber, after all. That alone set off a flicker of doubt in Jake's mind, but just a flicker.
This industry is, it's full of pseudonymous and anonymous people. But what was weird is that he's a YouTuber.
But then the guy kept talking. He sounded confident, casual. And Jake, he let the flicker fade.
So I'd actually watched a handful of his interviews. So you kind of understand who this person is or like what their interview style is like. It sounds just like him, literally just like him.
And pretty quickly, he wasn't just feeling relaxed. He was feeling kind of impressed. The questions were smart, technical. The interviewer clearly understood Emblem Vault, the crypto company that Jake was running.
What he was asking me actually was kind of nuanced questions about Emblem Vault, which to understand what Emblem Vault is, you have to be pretty deep into the industry.
So Jake did what any founder would do when somebody really gets it. He let his guard down.
And so After about 30 or 40 minutes into the interview, the gentleman says, okay, I would love for you to demo Agent Hustle.
Agent Hustle, not a 1970s crime show, but an AI tool for tracing blockchain activity. And Jake was really proud of it. So when the interviewer said he'd give Jake access to share his screen, he just clicked, shared his screen, and walked the interviewer through the tool. When the call ended, Jake thought it had gone pretty well.
I tell him, hey, it was a great interview. He asked the right questions, and he says it'll be up in a few days. And then that's it. Everything is fine.
But everything was not fine. It started the next day. Jake got a notification that a Mooncat NFT that he'd bought for $100,000 was suddenly sold at the bargain basement price of $1,000.
And then I see another sale happen. I get another notification from OpenSea saying that another sale's happened, very low ball.
And his heart started to race.
And I know there's a hack that's happening. I don't know how or what or why.
He scrambled, changed passwords, reached for every security switch he knew.
Just minimizing the blast radius of what was going on, trying to figure out what was happening.
And then came the moment everyone dreads. He was logged out of his email, his social media, and every time he tried to regain control, the hacker just kicked him right back out. It was like whack-a-mole with his life. He tried to revoke permissions on Revoke Cache. No luck.
I could see more Mooncats being listed, and then I see other collections being listed.
And then a chilling realization.
Oh, fuck, this is like a full-on, like somebody has my seed phrase.
Seed phrase, like a master key to all of his wallets and NFTs.
Which is crazy because I've never written that seed phrase down anywhere. Nowhere digitally. It's written down on a piece of paper inside of a safe.
That's when it clicked. Breaking into his computer was as good as breaking into his safe. How much did you lose?
It's about between 150 to 200,000, depending on how you value the assets themselves.
Jake was gutted and pretty confused. Who would do this and how? His gut told him that this had to be connected to that interview. But what kind of hacker launches a YouTube channel and runs it for 6 years just so they can scam someone? None of it made sense. So he called 911. Actually, SEAL 911.
The official name is Open Security Alliance, but everybody just says SEAL.
They're a team of white hat hackers who respond to crypto attacks.
We do everything from people who got phished for $1,000 to kidnappings to big North Korean heists. There's all sorts of crazy things. Whatever people need, we'll figure out a way to do it.
When we come back, the SEAL team gets to work. The FBI steps in, and the real host of tactical investing sends a very unexpected message. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Lauren Good. I'm a senior writer at Wired.
I'm Michael Calori, Wired's Director of Consumer Tech and Culture.
And I'm Zoe Schiffer, Director of Business and Industry, and we're the hosts of Wired's Uncanny Valley.
It's a show about the people, power, and influence of Silicon Valley.
Every week, we get together to talk about how technology and culture from the Valley are influencing our everyday lives.
The internet really was no longer about the early days. It was about minting money.
He was swapping out the hoodie for a suit.
And it just became like the shorthand for, I'm the Silicon Valley hustle coder guy.
Or we'll dive deep into the history of some of Silicon Valley's most important institutions and figures.
So a lot of people point to parallels between Sam Altman and Steve Jobs.
Very good for engagement for Meta, for its bottom line, possibly or probably bad for humanity.
I don't know if there's any single person that I would trust with this.
Whether you're optimistic or absolutely terrified about what Silicon Valley will do next, this is the podcast for you.
We'll be there to bring the analysis and reporting you can only get from Wired.
Listen to and follow Wired's Uncanny Valley wherever you get your podcasts.
Nick Bax is an incident responder at SEAL, and they've worked on thousands of crypto hacking cases like Jake's.
Yeah, it's just, we're always on call. Some days are a lot worse than others. Yesterday I woke up and it felt like every single threat actor we were looking at had decided to do something at the exact same time. Fridays are worse. I think a lot of hackers know that if they start hacking on Friday, the feds won't get involved until Monday.
Nick didn't waste any time trying to get to the bottom of what happened.
First thing we do in triage is give them a set of instructions to follow.
Apparently, the first thing you're supposed to do actually is unplug your computer from the internet.
Disconnect your computer from the internet.
I wish I would have known that. Probably would have saved myself a lot of money.
Then came the forensic work, retracing every click. And as they dug, Nick's spidey sense started tingling. He'd seen something like this before.
Yeah, as soon as we heard he suspected a Zoom call, we immediately start to think it's DPRK.
DPRK, North Korea, the most prolific crypto thieves on the planet. And they've been using Zoom to trick traders and even crypto companies with fake job interviews and investor calls.
And they play a video of a person that might be the person you're supposed to be meeting with, and they look bored and they're not talking, but it's actually a loop of a video. And then they tell you over text that there's trouble with the audio. And then they write, "Oh, we've seen this problem before. Just go to this link."
A link to malware. But Jake didn't click on anything like that. There was no fake video. He just had a conversation. One he thought was a pretty good one.
The fake interview was new. We hadn't seen this vector before. We realized it probably wasn't North Korea.
So the team went back to the drawing board. They went over everything again. And that's when they caught it.
They kept trying to get him to screen share.
The screen share that Jake used to demo Agent Hustle. And while there are lots of things you can do to protect yourself from a hack, antivirus software, avoid spammy links, there's one thing that's as hard to see coming as it is easy to fall for: social engineering. Hackers exploiting somebody's humanity, their ego, their enthusiasm, their fears. When it came time to demo his project, Jake was enthusiastic. They just launched this new AI tool, and he wanted everyone to know about it. So he wasn't quite as focused as he went through the screen share process.
They had a Zoom account where the name on the account was Zoom. And then they requested remote control, and a notification pops up on Zoom that says something like, "Zoom is requesting permission to remotely control your device."
In that moment, it didn't look like a red flag. It just looked like part of the process.
People just think it's requesting permission to share my screen, but it's actually requesting permission to remotely control your desktop.
Jake barely remembers clicking, which is exactly how the best hacks work.
When you do get hacked, it's like a magic trick, like an illusion. It's like when someone pulls a coin from behind my ear. They didn't really make a coin appear. They used a sleight of hand and tricked me.
And with that, the hackers had everything: remote access, files, passwords, wallets.
Once you get, remote code execution on someone's computer, you can do a lot. You can look for all of the high-value targets, private keys, SSH keys, access tokens, whatever. Then they'll get your password manager. They'll try and take over your Twitter account and your Telegram account.
The SEAL team had a hunch. Maybe this wasn't North Korea. Maybe this was someone borrowing from their playbook.
It was actually a group of Western people, US or Europe or North America-based hackers who had a clever method and were using it a lot.
A method that appeared to be piggybacking on North Korea's MO.
We have seen people try to imitate North Korean tactics, and I think what happened is they heard about this video chat Zoom call vector and thought, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea. We can modify that to fit to our strengths."
Maybe they even thought that looking like they were North Korean hackers would help them get away with it. Whatever it was, SEAL wrote about the group, and in their report, they called them Elusive Comet.
I don't know if they think we'll just give up because we know that they're beyond the reach of law enforcement or what, but it's actually the exact opposite of what you should do, because there are a lot of federal resources that focus completely on North Korea. So it's not in your interest if you're a hacker to have them think you're North Korea. despite what some people might think.
The FBI is now investigating. Jake says they reached out not long after he reported the attack and gave him even more detail.
This is a very large scam ring that's going on that could total potentially, 8 or maybe 9 figures in lost value. And they're all using Zoom, apparently, for all of this.
But the FBI wasn't the only one who reached out.
Hey, Jake. It's Alex, otherwise known as Tactical Investing. My account was compromised Wednesday of last week.
Tactical Investing is a real YouTube channel run by a real person, Alex Bannister. He's in the Air Force, and to prove who he was, he sent Jake a video of himself in uniform.
For proof, I'm in the military. There's my uniform, Air Force, and then my last name is Bannister. Check it out here. It's on my uniform. So
the hackers hadn't just fooled Jake. They'd hijacked someone else's identity to trick him. Jake lost a lot that day. Time, money, trust. But what bothers him most is Zoom. That remote access button that Jake was tricked into pressing, it's not some obscure setting. It's enabled by default for all personal Zoom accounts. If you use Zoom, it's probably enabled on your computer right now.
Basically, the whole scam is that if you're a host of a Zoom interview, you can request remote access to the guest. This is like a default feature that's on. Like if you turn that default feature off, this whole thing goes away. It's literally that simple.
We reached out to Zoom, and they told us they take security seriously, and that users must give explicit consent before allowing anyone to take control of their screen, which is technically true. But cybersecurity experts say that's not the point. While no one would be hurt if Zoom just turned it off from a default setting, it could save unsuspecting victims a lot of time, money, and hassle if they just did.
They could easily fix this by just making remote access default off. Like that's literally all they have to do to fix it, but they don't seem to be interested in wanting to make that change.
Jake says he's spoken with people at Zoom. He's even heard their CEO was made aware of his case. But so far, nothing's changed. So Jake's doing the only thing he can. The only thing he's been doing since he first stumbled into the crypto spotlight. He's talking about his life and telling people what happened to him. Journalists, crypto traders, Twitter followers, anyone who will listen.
Yeah, it is embarrassing, but I felt like it's much more important to keep people protected to ensure that this doesn't happen again and again and again. Do I want to be the face of this? No, not really. But do I want people to be aware of what's going on? Yeah, absolutely.
This is Click Here.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.
Here are some of the top cyber and intelligence stories from the past week. It's Tuesday, June 10th. And we begin in the U.S. Senate.
How are you going to make up for these gaps in the experience that you currently have?
That's Senator Gary Peters questioning Sean Cairncross, President Trump's nominee to be the next national cyber director. And Cairncross, well, he was candid.
Sure, well, Senator, it's true I don't have a technical background in cyber, but...
What he does have is management experience at a foreign aid agency, where he dealt with cyber attacks on the user side. He says now he's all about offense, and he named China as our biggest cyber threat. And perhaps, unsurprisingly, he defended the administration's deep cuts to the nation's cyber budget. He said it was a way to protect the country more efficiently.
The surveillance state is growing. Is it about safety or the power to monitor anyone, anywhere, and anytime? And what happens?
The line between public safety and state surveillance has always been fuzzy. And this week, it blurred even further. The Trump administration is working with Palantir Technologies to build something the U.S. government was never supposed to have, a centralized database of American citizens, aggregating everything from tax records to criminal history and immigration status. In March, President Trump signed an executive order to consolidate that data. And the result? A kind of all-seeing digital dossier. Even employees at Palantir are worried. It feels almost like science fiction.
A haunting and terrifying vision of what the world might become.
There is truth and there is untruth.
George Orwell's 1984.
But it isn't fiction anymore. And if centralized surveillance is one flavor of digital overreach, scraping the internet without permission is another.
Let us talk about another side of AI, and that is the licensing and training side.
Reddit is suing the AI company Anthropic for scraping its platform over 100 million times to train its chatbot, Claude. Unlike OpenAI and Google, which pay Reddit for access, Anthropic never inked a deal. They just helped themselves.
You can't just go in someone's house without knocking first, you know what I'm saying?
Anthropic, for its part, says the claim is frivolous. But the case raises bigger questions, like what's fair game in the world of AI training, and who gets to decide? And, for something rare in the headlines, a little cyber win.
The U.S. government just pulled off a massive cyber sting. Now, those sketchy domains redirect straight to law enforcement servers.
The Department of Justice has shuttered over 100 web domains tied to Biden Cash, a dark web marketplace for stolen credit cards. The site trafficked in over 15 million card numbers, earning nearly $17 million in shady crypto. And, in a twist, while law enforcement used to auction off criminal crypto, under a new Trump administration executive order, those funds will now help build America's strategic Bitcoin reserve. And finally, on your mark, get set, drive. Nintendo just released the Switch 2, and with it, a brand new title, Mario Kart World. This time, you're not just racing with Mario or Yoshi. You can drive as one of 50 new characters, including an ostrich or a potted plant with fangs. Now, think about that for a minute. Up to 24 players can race at once.
Mamma mia!
Today's episode was written and produced by Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, Erica Gaida, Dina Temple-Raston, and me, Zach Hirsch. I was the lead producer. The episode was edited by Karen Duffin, fact-checked by Darren Ankrum, and contains original music by Ben Livingston with some other music from Blue Dot Sessions. Our staff writer is Lucas Riley, and our illustrator is Megan Goff. Martin Peralta and Jesse Neiswanger do our sound design and engineering. Click Here is a production of Recorded Future News and PRX. Tune in Friday for Mic Drop, which features our favorite interview of the week. We'll see you then.
Looking for more of the cybersecurity and intelligence coverage you get on Click Here? Then check out our sister publication, The Record, from Recorded Future News. You'll get breaking cyber news from reporters in New York, Washington, London, and Kyiv, among others. And you'll see for yourself why it attracts hundreds of thousands of page views every month. Just go to therecord.media.